Welcome to the Business Leaders Legacy Podcast, the show where we go behind the scenes with business leaders to uncover their vision, strategies, and challenges they face along the way. My name is Chris Bruner. I'm the CEO of Simple AI Solutions and the host of today's podcast. I'm excited to have Vinny Silva, president of VS Construction. Thank you for being here today, Vinny. Can you please introduce yourself, tell our listeners a little about you, your business, and the customers you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Chris, for having us on. But yeah, as Chris said, I'm the founder, president of VS Construction. We focus on building high-end luxury custom homes and development, mainly in more affluent kind of Boston suburb areas. That's a little bit about us.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I wanted to ask, what do you enjoy most about running VS Construction?
What do I enjoy most, man? There are a few days that there's a longer list, and there's some other days where it's a very short list. But at the end of the day, like I love what I do, but it's more recently I've been shifting into a position of more, leadership and kind of system. So that's been really rewarding and entertaining, like being able to focus on systems, whereas, maybe a couple years ago, I was really heavily focused on, being on site and actually making sure these houses are built. Whereas now I feel like we've got a team that is doing that, and I'm more in charge of making sure the team is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, you know,
Yeah.
I, because I'm in that position now, I think it's definitely been my favorite part of the journey. Um, Being able to build the team, invest in them and seeing them grow, giving them the tools and like, you know, uh, info, whatever they need to be able to execute at the highest level.
Yeah, no, that's an exciting place to be. I feel like there's a often in business there's a time where, the leader instead of being out in the field and doing the hands-on work, they're more focused on strategy, leadership, driving the direction. And so that's exciting. That's super cool. I wanted to ask, what is the most, or let's just say a critical decision or turning point in VS Construction that really helped shape the direction of your business?
Yeah, kind of tying into that last question, it was actually more recently within the last 12 months was, realizing that I can't do it all, you know? Um from the beginning I've had some pretty hefty goals, and it kind of getting to a point that it was like I can't be the project manager on every single one of these projects. Like, like I need to grow. I need to have site supervisors, um, site superintendents, PMs, operations managers. So that was the big turning point. It was like I can't do this all by myself. Um, which, it's like in the beginning you learn how to build houses and how to build houses with quality and how to deliver this like level of quality and like a process to a client. And then once you feel like you've got that under control, it's now like, all right, now you're gonna bring on team members. And now you gotta like learn how to build them up and like how to like so it's an it's a long, never ending like process or journey, like learning. But that was a big turning point for me. It's like, all right, I need to now invest in the people,
Yeah.
invest in the team because like I can't do it all by myself.
Yeah, no, and that totally makes sense. There's definitely a lot that goes into leading a team and investing and just driving that strategy. It sounds like you're wearing a lot of hats within in the business, which is typical for a business owner, founder. But yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. I
Yeah, and
wanted
I,
to.
I
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say like, yeah, like I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like it's necessary, especially in a small business, you have
Yeah.
to fill the roles until you can actually fill them until, obviously the end goal is to get to somewhere where it's like I'm not there on a day to day, um, but yeah, it's definitely been a rewarding process.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's cool. I wanted to talk about trends within the industry. What are some of the biggest changes you're seeing in construction market right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, you know. I feel like a big thing we're seeing is like the rise in expectation, and that has a lot to do with like social media. Um, there's so much information out there, access to information. The client expectation is at like an all-time high. So, it really transparency and communication is like really important today. And
Yeah,
that's something we've been really invested in. It's like how can we consistently, you know, communicate to a point that like a client is never questioning on what's going on.
yeah,
How
yeah,
how are we the first ones to communicate with them so they're not, you know, like my goal is to never have a client message me being like, hey, like what's going on? Like, are we delayed? Are we over budget? Like, when's this happening? It's like, no, like we're always the first ones to communicate and let them know like everything that's going on,
yeah. No,
you know?
that's important. That really is. I'm sure your clients feel very, very good about all that communication because yeah, communication is key. It's so important. Are you seeing any maybe like new tools or strategies, and perhaps of like technology or automations or anything within the industry that's maybe helping you do that communication or any other part of the business, project management or estimating or any lead generation, anything like that?
Yeah, so, that's kind of like another area is tech. Um, you know, Technology is growing, so like the access to have these different CRMs, different like, portals, like we've started using one recently, which they've been around for, many years, but I think they've changed a lot over the last several years, but like, you know, it makes it so easy to like we have everything in one place. At the end of every week, like the system almost like reminds us to send out client updates. Like we're getting pictures throughout the week. We're putting updates into the system every day, and it's like AI is built into the system, and it's almost generating like a client update every week. So that's technology has definitely helped. I'm big on like ChatGPT. I love it. Like I'm always using it, whatever it can help me with. So AI definitely has like a big impact in that area.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
AI is making an impact in a wide variety of industries and it's yeah, it's very interesting and there's so much to it. There's so much that so many more tools and processes and a lot of these like apps that have been around for a long time or different websites like the CRMs or this or that they are a lot of them are adopting AI within their platforms, which is cool to see because it definitely helps with efficiency and a lot of that stuff. Yeah, and so shifting a little bit, I wanted to ask, what's currently working really well within your business, right? What's making you most proud of your team's work right now?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I'd have to say like it's our like process and organization. Um, I think like a big thing is that our projects are being run in like a very like the same way that I used to run them. So it's definitely nice, it's definitely good to see that. It's like, all right, like they're listening, they're like, they're paying attention, they're doing things the way that like I've been preaching about. Um, but at the same time, it's like, at the other side of it too, it's like client experience and communication. They've kind of taken that up too to um build that on just outside of me,
Yeah.
take not have to like be whereas like I'm telling them to do something, it's like they're taking the first step.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that's awesome to see the fruit of your labor actually start to, like reap that harvest where your team is really putting the two and two together and making it work the way you want. That's cool. That's really cool. What are some, every business, right? Every industry, no matter where you're at, faces hurdles and challenges. What is maybe a past challenge that you faced within your business and how did you overcome it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big one was more recently it was hiring. So we we were hiring a new project manager and everything was going really well. Like the resume was like really great. And I kind of picked up on a small little lie that they told. And once I like dug into it, um, it kind of like carried over to like another like little lie, like minimal stuff that like most
Yeah.
people would just be like, ah, whatever, like like you seem like a good employee, like whatever, we'll look past it. But I think like I'm pretty hard, like pretty like I like to follow the rules and make sure and kind
Yeah.
of that passes on. I think like I thought it was like if I let this thing go now, then it's gonna carry over and it's like something else. Maybe it's something on the project that maybe affects the clients. So, I had to kind of just put my foot down and be like, all right, no, like we're not accepting that. That's just not something that's not a standard that we accept. Um, so that was definitely a challenge. I mean, hiring in general is pretty tough. Bringing on talent that kind of align with our vision and like our standards. Um, that's definitely been I think one of the most challenging parts in kind of growing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it is a challenge to really find that right type of talent, to fit that specific need within the business. Yeah. What about like maybe currently, are there any challenges or bottlenecks or headaches, anything that you're facing right now that yeah, just any challenges right now?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to change it up a little bit, in terms of like really like on in the construction side of things, we've we've seen a lot of challenges when it comes to um, these new energy code regulations. So like in our area in Massachusetts, in the Boston area, we no longer can have natural gas in houses,
Hmm.
which like it's huge. People love the, natural gas range or fireplaces, heating equipment. Obviously it gets pretty cold here, and now we're having to shift to all electric, which is just it's a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
So that's really been a big challenge, and I think it's only going to get more and more challenging over the next couple of months and years if things don't kind of fix itself.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's yeah, that makes sense. That would definitely be a hard shift for a lot of those customers and clients that you have. That makes sense. Well, I wanted to ask, shifting a little bit, I wanted to talk about the future, right? Where you're headed. Looking ahead, maybe like 6 to 12 months, what are some goals that you're focused on achieving within your business? And what strategy do you want to use to, try to achieve those goals?
Yeah, I think, a big one that's been really top of mind for me recently that I've been making moves kind of with that in mind is I definitely want to step out of the position I'm in, and kind of step into more of like a CEO role where I'm just not needed in the day to day of what's going on. So like,
Hmm.
if I'm taking like, a couple weeks off, like things are still running smoothly without me.
Yeah.
That's a big one right now. Not that like I plan to step out anytime soon, but I just don't want to be needed. And that
Yeah.
way I can focus more on like strategic, like growth, um, and so on. So that's a really big role. Plus, like, moving into the right now we focus on like the 1.5 million to $3 million homes. And over this next year or two, like kind of make a shift from the 1 to 3 to the 3 to 5. So,
Mm.
um, that's another big goal that we have, and kind of being strategic about that, and setting ourselves as like being a recognizable name in like the luxury home market. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exciting. When you think about that goal of aiming to have these bigger projects, you mentioned $3 to $5 million, and what how do you envision scaling at that? What would you do to scale to get to that point?
yeah, so a big part of it is making sure we have the team in place for that. Um, and then the second part is like, being in the right areas. Um, Typically, like a $5 million house isn't surrounded by $1 million houses. So it's like, all right,
Yeah.
where do I need to be seen by these, $5 million homeowners, these higher net worth individuals. So, networking is big, kind of just like I got into golf this year, which just helps kind of you being surrounded. So, looking to get a golf membership, going to different like country clubs and just kind of being surrounded by individuals in that area. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, and when you think about growth and growth within your business, how do you primarily define that growth? Is it based on volume? Is it based on strictly like those like bigger projects, or how would you think of growth within your business?
Yeah, so, for me, growth isn't just more projects, but it's better projects. So, you know, bigger in kind of like the dollar value, like, if I could spend $5 million to build a house versus if I'm spending $1 million, it's a clear, different type of product. So,
Mhm.
that's one side of it, but then, you know, also kind of being more, higher end, like luxury, and then also making sure that we're delivering a higher quality of work, better standards, have a project be on time, make sure that we're constantly communicating. It's like at the end of the day, it feels like a well-oiled machine. There's no friction. Our team, our subs, they're being properly communicated with like ahead of time. They know what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. So that's, you know, that's what that looks like for me. That's what growth
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. When you think of what is a a big maybe like operational or sales related challenge that you believe must be solved to achieve that success of those goals?
Yeah, I think it's like the consistent execution, um, consistently being kind of like in your A game, but at the same time, kind of even like, it's one thing for me to delegate to other people, but now it's like having to tell other people to delegate as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I think in all, it's just working a little bit every day in each different category. It's not going to be like I feel like from when I started to like where I am now, it's been a big growth. And from here on out, like it's gonna continue being that way, but it's like little actions that just kind of keep moving you up little by little.
Mm,
Um, and it's like I have a buddy of mine that we always joke. It's like, you know, at the end of the day, business is like it's very boring. It's getting into the office, you're by yourself, like you're working. It's like there's nothing sexy about it, but it's
mm,
rewarding. And it's like at the end of the day, like we love it, but it's it's boring,
yeah.
and it's fine to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I feel like I've heard it a lot, right? You just focus on those exact few little steps that will take you, to the next step, to the next problem, to the next thing. Like just day by day focusing on just what's right in front of you and taking that step and moving forward. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Well, Vinny, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. The insights you brought were great. I think our listeners will have a awesome time listening to it. Before you go, can you share with our listeners where they can find VS Construction and learn more about your company?
Yeah, find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all our social media handles are it's VS Construction CO. And yeah, thank you, Chris. I had a great time as well. This has been awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, to close, I'd like to ask one last question. Since this is the Business Leaders Legacy podcast, and you, as the founder and owner of VS Construction, um, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about raising the standard, building a company that's, built around trust and reputation, and, being a recognizable name in the state for, luxury homes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, thank you all for listening. Again, this is the Business Leaders Legacy podcast. Thank you, Vinny, for sharing your insight today. Really appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.